key part of any handstand is equilibrium. The equation for equilibrium is very simple. It's center of mass sitting over base of support. That basically means keep your hips over the hands. If your hips move from the line of where your hands are, of course you won't be in balance, you'll fall over. Now, what's really important in the handstand press is that you have lots of moving parts. Hello team, and welcome back to Figuring Things Out. Today we're looking at the press to handstand. This is the second video in this series where I'm breaking down a complicated bodyweight skill, offering a guidance, tutorial, and also a free PDF that you can download to work with in your own time. In video number 1, we looked at straight arm pulling skills, such as toes to bar and the front lever. Today, we're looking at the synergistic pair of this, which is the pushing variation of the press to handstand and the tuck planche. And it's a really interesting one. It's a beautiful mix of mobility, strength, coordination, balance, you name it, physical intelligence in a nutshell. In order to get the most from this video, it's important that you have a freestanding handstand. Just a basic handstand with your legs together is enough. Anywhere from 20 up to around 45 seconds, 30 seconds is a sweet spot there. If you do have these, then watch this space. Let's get into it. So program number 1 is all about laying the foundations. And we're going to split this program into some key sections that you need to tick off. Section number 1 is a vertical component regarding the upper body pushing. Number 2 is a horizontal component, again regarding the shoulders in the upper body in this straight arm pushing. It's really important here that you understand how to resist the force in the shoulders and the scapula to give yourself the best base possible to resist what you need to do to lift the legs for the press to handstand. We then have a mobility couplet to finish off, and we have both an active and a passive component here. The active component is looking to use the range of motion, and the passive component is looking at gaining more potential range of motion. The lovely thing with the press to handstand is that the more you can gain in your mobility, the less shoulder strength you need, and therefore the less effort you may have to use. Now, there's lots of different anthropometrics and body proportions that play their role here. If you're blessed with long legs and short arms, the press to handstand is going to be much easier for you. If you're someone that has short legs and long arms, it's something that's maybe a bit more difficult, but nonetheless, you will be able to conquer this beast in your own time and with your own preparation and, of course, determination. So, let's go. First drill of the program is going to be the straddle handstand. Legs nice and wide, and we're looking at holds of around 20 to 30 seconds here. Now, the nuance here is we have both an upright straddle handstand and a deep straddle handstand. And what's happening here is, as you see from the side of my handstand, we have legs nice and high, center of mass stacked over the base of support, so we have an equilibrium position. But as the legs roll, as they get deeper into the straddle, and as your hips start to turn over, you start to have what we call underbalance, where the weight of the legs are underneath the base of support, underneath the hands. So they're challenging the strength of the shoulder. And this is really important because this is exactly what is happening in the press to handstand. So if we can already learn that in a very small range of motion, with the straddle handstand going from a high to a low straddle, you're in a really good standing to then move forward into more complex drills later on. So as you're practicing through the sessions, through the weeks, try to work on deepening that straddle, getting the legs nice and wide, and really making sure your shoulders stay nice and strong. So moving on to part 2, the horizontal component. Today's horizontal component is going to be a banded scapular push-up. So hopefully by now you're aware of what a scapular push-up is. If you're not aware, here it is. The band is lovely because it offers a resistance, and that's exactly what we need to learn the full tuck planche. We're looking to protract hard, forcing pressure into the floor, ensuring we maintain as much protraction as possible in the shoulders, resisting, driving the shoulders towards flexion, that's arms towards the sky. If you can start to load this with the shoulders facing forwards and leaning forwards, that's a fantastic basis in order for you to move on to the next level. What's important here is that you really lock out the elbows and focus all of your attention on the scapula and the shoulder girdle. So for the mobility couplet, we have the potential, the passive range of motion, which will be a simple straddle Jefferson curl. Now this is lovely because we can practice the press to handstand in a nice and easy manner without any pressure on the shoulders, just working through the hip range of motion. So find yourself a nice wide straddle on the floor, or if you can on a raised surface, and you can begin rolling down the spine using the head as a weight initially, reaching the arms nice and deep, pausing for a few seconds, and then rolling back up again. And if you want to add load, you can do so with a dumbbell, kettlebell, or as you see here, with a backpack filled with whatever you've got lying around. The active component is then going to be straddle compressions. This is where you're sitting on the floor, lifting your legs up against gravity, trying to use as much range of motion as possible. This is really helpful for the initiation of the press to handstand. So work hard here. Every time you lift your legs, try to lift them a millimeter higher, and the intention will really help you learn to improve the range of motion over time. Okay, so program number 2. Here's where we're going to really start to challenge the shoulders and move on all of the components in the program. So let's go first to the vertical component that's driving the shoulders over the head. We're now going to look with a high tuck. So the high tuck is something where you're tucking the knees in, but you're not letting the knees and the femur drop below the parallel. So you can keep this horizontal position of the upper leg. Now this is going to challenge the shoulders as the straddle did in underbalance, where the shoulder has to push nice and tall into shoulder flexion and resist the urge to fall out of the shape. The reason why we're keeping the knees above the parallel is because as you start to bring the legs deeper, you're going to start to challenge the shoulder flexion further. So first point of call is trying to hold this high tuck position for sets of around 15 to 20 seconds. We're then going to move on to the horizontal component. And again, we're looking at tucking the knees in now, moving towards this tuck planche position, but we're going to do so in a fashion that we call toe taps. The toe tap is a variable assistance, so you can help yourself as much or as little as you need to in order to get the time and attention and the stimulus to adapt in the shoulder girdle, the elbows, and the wrists. Now, due to the amount of loading that's going through this area, it might make sense to slightly externally rotate the hands, so point them outwards. I like to imagine my index fingers are slightly forwards or just off the forward line, and this really helps my wrists when I'm doing this quite a lot. You're going to slide forwards, protract as hard as you possibly can, push, 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 maintaining the protraction, and slide the toes in, tucking the knees nice and tight, trying to keep the hips at the same height of the shoulder. You will then lightly tap the toes on the floor, and this should feel quite easy for you because you're putting as much weight as you possibly can into the shoulders. If you can't get the feet to levitate or to feel like they can come off the floor, it might be due to your inability to lean further forward and support yourself in the shoulder girdle, in which case you might need more preparation before you move on to this level. The goal of the planche toe taps is to eventually use the toes less and less and less until you feel like you can have some short holds in the full tuck planche. We then move to the mobility couplet, and once more we're going to use the passive straddle Jefferson curl. It's quite hard to say that one. And we're looking to increase your range of motion from last phase. Maybe you might want to add a little bit more weight into the hands, whether it's a dumbbell, kettlebell, or the bag once again. And you're really looking at rounding and rolling through the spine, both as you come down and as you come up. And that's really important for learning the press to handstand. If you can't roll through the spine and really articulate through the lower spine and into the pelvis, you're going to find it very difficult to have a nice smooth pressing motion when you do the full thing with the legs lifting against gravity. So the weighted straddle Jefferson curl is a great drill for you to practice this. We then combine this with one of my favorite press drills. I apologize here, it sucks, but it's very important. It's the press handstand laying drill. So I'm doing the press to handstand motion with my legs, but I'm laying with my back on the floor. So I get this lovely feedback of now my legs moving into a straddle, and then I get to roll through my pelvis as I lift my legs up towards the sky and over. And gravity then helps me get a nice deep pike position that I need when I start the initial press to handstand motion eventually. So this is a lovely one. It's really important that you move slowly here and you try to use as much of your natural range of motion as possible. I like to anchor my hands onto something so I get a nice stable base. You can do this unloaded, but of course, it's a bit nicer if you have a stable hand position. This is an awesome one. Take your time. It's going to suck to begin with, but I promise you it's really going to help you. Okay, here we go with program number 3. This program is going to be tough. It's really going to test your shoulders in both vertical and horizontal plane. And we're also going to now get into the patterning aspect of the press to handstand. Now that's where you're learning in real time how to articulate the legs through your straddle from high to low, and then begin to roll the pelvis down into that deep pike that you learnt from the laying press to handstand without leaning the shoulders too far forwards. Now, this is the real key part of the press to handstand. You want to use your mobility and your coordination of the pelvis and the legs without leaning the shoulders too far forward. Now, there's a really important animation that I want to show you here. The key part of any handstand is equilibrium. The equation for equilibrium is very simple. It's center of mass sitting over base of support. That basically means keep your hips over the hands. If your hips move from the line of where your hands are, of course, you won't be in balance. You'll fall over. Now, what's really important in the handstand press is that you have lots of moving parts. And essentially, the rule stays the same. Hands and hips, they must stay on the vertical. But the shoulders and the legs have to counterbalance each other. So basically, the less range of motion you have in your hip, the further the legs are in this direction, and therefore the further the shoulders must go in this direction. The goal is therefore to slowly bring these two aspects closer to one another so that the shoulders don't have to lean so far forward, and of course you can then use a nice tight straddle moving in through the press. So key point number 1, hips over hands. Key point number 2, the closer the legs are, the closer the shoulders can be. Let's get into the program. So first part of the program, we're looking at now the low tuck, really challenging your shoulder flexion, really challenging your compression because you're pulling the knees down nice and deep, and you're really going to get a lot of stress and stimulus through the upper and mid back. This is amazing. It's really exactly the strength that you need in order to resist the shoulders for the press to handstand goal. We're then going to move on to the horizontal aspect, and here is where we're going to look at really lightening the toes on the floor in the toe tap planche, ultimately looking at short holds of the tuck planche, ultimately looking to increase those over the course of the phase. Once again, it's really okay for you to twist the hands out in order to stop any unnecessary wrist pain occurring. Then we come to the final part of the program, and this is where it's tough because you've had a lot of shoulder stimulus in both the vertical and the horizontal. And now you're going to try and work with the patterning, which is using the straddle handstand position, the deep straddle handstand, rolling all the way down in a slow press eccentric, a press negative. The goal here is to learn the pattern in a slow fashion as possible so you can really ingrain every minute detail. Key principle number 1, hips over hands. Key principle number 2, don't lean the shoulders too far. Try to keep the legs nice and tight. If you can apply these 2 key principles, the press to handstand will be yours in due course. Now, of course, there needs to be a bit of a manipulation through this phase. And what I mean by that is organization of stresses. You can't do all of these drills at any one time. You need to focus some on some days and some on the other. And that's where the PDF program will help you. Link in the description. So there we have a rough guide to the press to handstand in 3 sections that are followable, applicable, and of course apply progression through and through. What's important to note, however, is that you should not give up hope. It is possible for everyone. I've taught teenagers and I've taught people in their 60s, even a lovely lady in Australia that was 67 years old towards the press to handstand. It's a really awesome skill and it's possible for you. Don't forget, you'll find the free PDF down below that you can download, and you can also download the previous one from the previous video on straight arm strength in the pulling domain. If you want toes to bar and you want a tuck front lever, that's the one for you. Please let me know down in the comments if you enjoy this video, what you would like to see next, and of course, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you, and keep figuring things out.